Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and you know what time it is when you see that tier maker. This time we're looking at the best artifacts. We're ranking all of the newest artifacts since May of this year, so it's been a few months. We've had the introduction of tier 4. I thought this would be a good time to catch up because we are 16 artifacts short. Now, they haven't done anything to make artifacts easier to get. However, the 4-star artifact selectors that you can choose instead of getting the random CTP or the random premium card with those tokens after every big update is starting to become a much more attractive option. And a lot of people messaged me saying, yo, Alex, I'm thinking of using the 4-star artifact selector to pick up Iron Man's artifact because I'm going to get him to level 80. I'm going to tier 4 Iron Man, or maybe Moon Knight, or maybe Valkyrie. So I wanted to cover all these new artifacts and give you my advice and my tips if you want to do that. I still think the P card is a very valuable and very attractive option, but in some of these cases, the artifacts can be almost as strong as equipping a CTP for some of these characters, especially for the tier 4s with how much instinct they gain from going to tier 4. And if you need an explanation of that, you got to check out my tier 4 videos. I'll leave a little icon here right next to my face here, this little eye thing that pops up, because the instinct amount just goes crazy, right? When you tier 4 a character, the amount of instinct they have, like, it's more than quadruples. It multiplies by like 5. It's wild. So anyways, let's get into it. There was a bit of a bug when I was making this list, and it like duplicated all the artifacts. So don't panic. I'm not doing duplicates. It's just the way that it looks. We're gonna start off with the easy ones here. These are just useless because not only are the characters weak, but also the artifacts are not strong. So it's basically you're getting punched in the gut twice. So yeah, for Scourge and Angela, they got the exact same artifact. It just buffs their attack. But honestly, what they both needed was a heal, because neither of them got a new uniform, neither of them got a heal. If they get a heal in the future, if they get a new uniform and a rework, whatever, like Silk and those kinds of characters, then maybe these artifacts would be better, because yeah, boosting attack does matter in that case. But in this case, it doesn't when you have the defenses of, a wet paper bag. One change I'm going to make to the existing list, not the new artifacts here, is I'm actually going to move Luna up from useless to the top of not enough. And the reason for that is very, very high accounts, very, very stacked accounts who also have cold resist on their cards can make some use of this for pushing very high stages of World Boss Legend. It's a very niche thing, and I do not recommend it for 99.9% of players because it's way too expensive and it's not really worth it, and whatever. But I just wanted to acknowledge that is part of the meta. It's not meta, but it is part of how some people play. And so it does have some value. We also have Nadia's new artifact and Nova's new artifact. I was kind of disappointed in both of these for different reasons. Nova's artifact has some damage reduction and some damage increase by ignoring the enemy's damage reduction, but I feel like it doesn't go far enough. It only gives them like 20 and 15% at 6 stars, which is very, very low. And it didn't make him good enough for PvP, especially since they didn't give him a uniform. In Nadia's case, they made a really cool artifact that when she uses a skill, it heals everyone on the team. That's a really cool idea, except Nadia sucks, so it doesn't matter. Some people were, theorizing this could be good for Alliance Conquest. It's not. Anyways, a 10% heal on a garbage character who gets one-shotted anyways is basically irrelevant. So yeah, unfortunately, they didn't go far enough with these, but maybe in the future, same sort of thing for Scourge and Angela. If these characters get uniforms, then they may be useful artifacts in the future. But for now, I would say, yeah, don't get too hype if you pull them. Next up, we have Elektra, and Elektra's artifact, very similar to Psylocke Betsy's. It basically just increases the chance that she's going to increase her crit damage. So it's nice for offensive and this kind of burst damage stuff, but Elektra just didn't go far enough. I would have wished that her artifact was for PvP, and maybe that could have pushed her to the PvP meta, but yeah, unfortunately it didn't. Blades is also, again, just pretty good. I'm going to put Blades a little bit ahead. Yeah, you can put them side by side. It basically just increases his damage. It gives him a buff, a stacking buff when he uses a skill that has lifesteal. So it's the same concept as Kingpin's artifact, and it's the same concept as what's his name, Elektra's artifact, where every time he uses a shock skill, it's going to stack up his attack, and it can stack up to a pretty high percentage. I believe it's like 70-80%, but you have to do a lot of lifesteal skills. Blade is good for sure. I mean, you could say this is a little bit better than that. I would probably, yeah, I would put it about here. I think that's a fair ranking for his artifact, but again, it's not going to blow you out of the water because Blade is just sort of like a kind of mid-level character. We also got Destroyer's artifact, which I thought was really, really cool. Unfortunately, I don't think Destroyer is good enough, but I really like the idea. And again, I think a lot of these artifacts are just held back by the fact that these characters didn't get 2022 uniforms, because Destroyer's artifact, it heals him when he reflects. It heals for a percentage of the reflect, which is super, super cool. But he still gets one-tapped by a lot of characters, and he can't obviously reflect physical damage. So yeah, if they created a uniform in the future for him that had really high physical defense, and it's maybe like more HP and maybe a heal or something like that, then I could definitely see this artifact being much more valuable. At the current time, it's just a very prospectively valuable artifact. And then we have Iceman's. I actually really like Iceman's uniform because it buffs his cold attack based on his cold resist, but so it's like Luna's, but it also gives him resistances. This is where it's different. His is basically just an upgraded version of Luna's, so of course it's going to be better. And the 20% all resist is very good because it means he's going to take less damage from Mephisto World Boss Legend, but any other content where any other elemental damage is dealt, he takes less damage. And 20% to all elemental resistances is actually pretty good. So yeah. We also got Black Widow's artifact. It's exactly the same as Echo's. I think it's a little bit worse than Echo's because Black Widow is a little bit worse for PvP. I think like quite a bit worse for PvP, but anyways, it just gives her dodge chant, like absolute dodge type of thing. It's good. It's definitely better than some, and she's definitely a better character than most of the ones that I've talked about besides Iceman. So that's why it's there. But again, yeah, her lack of presence in PvP is really what's going to then hold her back. I'm actually just realizing that I had to move some of these. Okay, so I have to make some additional changes to the tier list because it basically just, yeah, it's just necessary. So I actually have to move Kingpin and Scarlet Witch down, not because they got worse, but just because we're getting new options in the meta category, and you kind of see what that looks like in a minute here. So yeah, I also moved down. I have a reference copy that I'm looking at. I also moved down Doctor Strange's artifact because I just felt like I was overvaluing it a little bit at the time. So yeah, that's actually what it should look like. Perfect. Okay, moving on. Okay, we're gonna clear the tier 4 soon, don't worry. We first have to talk about Robbie Reyes. A lot of people were hyped about this artifact. It does make him better than regular Ghost Rider for squad battle, but I still don't think it goes quite far enough, so I'm actually gonna put it right here, just ahead of Echo's artifact. I think it's good. Again, it buffs his fire damage based on his fire resistance, and you can use a fire resist leadership like Ghost Riders to buff it even further, and it also gives him a buff when he uses a fire skill, which is good for sure, but it's only for squad battle. It really only has value in squad battle, so I can't really, I think this is a bit of a stretch, personally. I don't think it should be even this high, but yeah, I'll put it there for now just because I know there's a lot of Robbie Reyes fans out there, and you know, I don't want to seem like I'm hating on the guy or whatever. I think it's a decent artifact. I wouldn't like jump for joy over it. And then for Jane Foster's artifact, again, similar, well, actually not similar to Ghost Rider. It's a good artifact. It basically buffs her damage to enemies that have more than 50% HP. So it's the same as Kingo's artifact. The difference is that Jane Foster's a really strong character. So whereas Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes is only for squad battle, Jane Foster is for like all world boss content. She just absolutely blitzes it, crushes it. And so having even more damage, doing that even faster, is quite a nice perk to have for that artifact, and we all just got it for free actually. Okay, so I believe we only have the tier 4s left and Valkyrie. Valkyrie's artifact is a team buff artifact, so that is always going to be meta. It's not quite as strong as Black Cat's from what I remember, but it still buffs all allies. So yes, it is absolutely meta. Anytime you can buff all allies, whether they're heroes or villains, that is going to be a very valuable effect. So that's that. You could actually argue that it's better than Black Cat's because Valkyrie is transcended. So you can use her in all content. You cannot use Black Cat in Dormammu GBR, World Boss Legend, yada yada yada. So I'm actually gonna put Valkyries ahead of Black Cats. I made that mistake in my other practice list. Now we move on to the tier 4s. We got Storm, Iron Man, Thor, and Moon Knight. This is where the list really needed updating. So for Storm, I'm actually only gonna put her in very good, because Storm is, in my opinion, the worst of the tier 4s. Now, again, that's sort of a knock on Storm to try to push the devs to buff her movement speed, her defenses. But yeah, her artifact is also not that good. So by comparison, Iron Man, Thor, and Moon Knight's artifacts are way better. They're very, very good. You know, Iron Man, he gets a huge boost in damage to boss types, which, you know, is a lot of PvE content. Thor gets increased lightning damage based on lightning resistance, which is really strong because you can actually use his own leadership to buff his lightning damage, which is amazing. And since he gets so much lightning damage and elemental damage from his tier 4 and his passives, you can actually then not have to use lightning leaderships like Beta Ray Bill, and you can just use more buff leaderships and more passives like White Fox and Valkyrie as support. So it actually opens up a whole new way of playing Thor, and it actually makes him the best speedrunner for farming content like Dispatch and Dimension Rift. So you got to respect the value of that artifact. You might argue that it's actually more valuable than Iron Man's. Iron Man's a little bit stronger than Thor, so it really just depends on what you value more, raw strength or utility. And then we have Moon Knight. Moon Knight is amazing for ABX, and it basically makes him an easy 12 million on a bunch of different days because it increases damage to enemies with 50% HP or above. So again, it's the same idea as Jane Foster, and it's the same idea as Kingo, and it's the same idea as not Kingo, actually. Kingo is 50% or less. That's what Kingo's is. It's the same as Makari's. I misspoke. Yeah, it's the same as Makari's, where it basically deals more damage to enemies as long as they have more than 50% of their HP, which is not... it doesn't have any difference between that and Jane Foster's. And Kingo's for regular content, where the boss, you know, will have 50% more and then 50% less for the rest of the battle. But it's very good against the Frost Beast because the Frost Beast constantly auto heals, which means that it's constantly above 50%. So that basically means his artifact, like Makari's, will be triggered for the entire ABX fight. So I sort of ran through this as fast as I could. There's way too many artifacts at this point in the game, so I may have to figure out a new way of organizing this because it's getting quite crowded. But yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the artifact ranking tier list, and what you think of the new additions, the 16 new artifacts. And then what do you think is going to happen? Where are we going to get Gore's artifact from? How strong is Hulk's artifact? There are some really spicy artifacts just a couple of days away from being revealed, especially the ones the two I just mentioned. I'm very excited to see what those are. So yeah, maybe this list is going to get shaken up. Thanks so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.